What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to give you guys an analysis of the overall market, break down why it's still very possible for the market to squeeze higher, even if we do get a little pullback for the short term. I'm going to break down some very important levels to watch for and how this could end up playing out, and why you need to be prepared for anything, because the market is once again designed to cause pain to as many people as possible. Now, before I break down double this information, before I get into any more details about all of this, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, deposit $100, you are guaranteed 7 free stocks. And the offer ends very soon, in just about 11 days from now. Anyways, for the market, as you guys know, we have quite a bit of factors that affect the way the market is moving. But please know that the market is pumping based off data that could be very manipulated. So when you look at data that's been coming out, right? We had CPI come out, last week. We had all this data that came out. CPI was aligned with expectations. Jerome Powell gave a speech and he pumped the markets. And as long as the data is decent, the market will continue to hold up very well. There's no sign that big tech are really like crashing right now. They're continuing to hold up because of the fact that if we were to enter a recession very soon, they're prepared for it. They're still going to, continue to do relatively well, at least for now. Now, could there be another catalyst that comes that causes the market to tank? Yes, it's always a possibility, whether it's the regional bank failures, whether there's something else that happens involving wars, that's always a possibility. But in this case, and right now, I'm not really seeing that catalyst at the time I'm recording this. So you want to be very open minded nonetheless about what could end up happening. So, just to be very frank with everyone, for Wednesday, we have Nvidia's earnings. Whatever Nvidia announces could have a big effect on how we end up moving too. So, that's why I wanted to call out how this market could end up moving from here. So, excuse me, SPY has all these gaps to fill. We have gaps down at 523. There's also gaps over here at 511. There's another gap over here at 505, and the list goes on. We have a bunch of gaps on SPY to fill. Now, does this mean SPY has to crash and fill all of them and then bounce? That's not a guarantee just yet. But just know that historically, SPY does have a tendency of being very, very bullish during periods like these, especially during the summertime. And with all the manipulation that's happening, with all these people expecting some kind of crash, as long as people keep on shorting SPY, if people keep on expecting it to just dump and they keep doing it again and again, the market has no mercy and it could continue to do what it has to do. So for SPY, I just want to call this out. We are bullish right now, but it is possible we kind of dip for the shorter term just a little bit. But the question is, will we see a very, very quick dip and then we start to rally again, or is something else about to shift? So for SPY, we have our Fibonacci retracement chart right over here. As you guys can see, our 0.236 retracements at 522. It also aligns with this little confluence right over here. So I'll be watching this as a very, very pivotal level. So for SPY, when Jerome Powell gives his speech, we will see if we kind of like break the high, the all-time high, and continue to rally, or if we establish a lower high. If we fail and establish a lower high, the market does start cooling off its indicators. We could get a little pullback back down to fill this gap over here. That's always a possibility, but we have to lose 525 first. Losing 525 is confirmation. We're going to be dipping a little bit. We also have previous resistance becoming support at 525. So that's going to be key for us, just like this. And if we do get this little correction, if we do kind of, not really a correction, more like a pullback, if it does happen, who's to say this is going to last forever? There's no guarantee we come all the way down here and then get a V-shaped recovery unless we get a bad catalyst. I don't see that yet. So as of right now, we could just see a little dip like this, and then the buyers could return and do their thing as we approach June and July. And this market could easily start pushing to new all-time highs into the 540 to 550 area, at least as we approach the summer. Now, if this were to happen, right, during our cyclical period, do not forget that the next earnings report could actually shift things, the next earnings cycle that comes after that. So I would expect around this August period, as we get closer to August through October, we could see another pullback from there. And then that's when we could see a much bigger move to the downside again for the next cycle. And then I would say right before, we approach October, then we could start to rebound again. But I know it sounds crazy. I know it makes no sense to a lot of people why I'm talking about this potentially happening. But I want to make it very clear that that's always like a possibility that we should be 110% prepared for when it comes to the way we move on the daily time frame. If we look at some indicators out here, like if we look at how things have been moving for SPY and how things could end up developing, I just want to make it very clear that the market is crazy. The market will do what it has to do, even if it's completely illogical, and it will do whatever it can to kind of screw over as many people as possible. You could be the most logical person ever and still lose money in the markets because of how manipulated and biased things tend to be. There were instances where SPY was like, in a very, very overbought position, at least on the RSI, like right here. And then we just kind of consolidated for a bit. Then we continued higher again. Then we saw like a little dip by 10 points before we continued higher. And you guys can see, don't solely trade based off an RSI because when you look at the RSI, we're in an overbought place right now. But there were instances where this happened before and SPY just continued to run. There were instances where SPY was super overbought in the 450s, 460s last year, right? In December, even in January, it just kept going and going and going, squeezing as many people as possible. So, with that being said, in my personal opinion, we'll see if we get a little dip or not from here. There could be a little dip coming. We'll see if we get a little pop with Jerome Powell speaking. I do think we might pop a little bit, but we'll see if the high breaks or not. If it doesn't break, we could actually dip a little bit. And then approaching the summertime, whether we bounce off our 0.382 retracement or even our 0.236, however low we go, it depends on different catalysts out there, but the market still has potential to rally in the summer as it's known for doing, and this could lead to some very, very interesting price action. So I'll be watching to see how this ends up leading price action to kind of like developing, and what else we can kind of see at least from these different stages. But in my opinion, I think it's very important to always be paying attention to this and just to watch and see what this ends up leading to as we continue to move forward. That's going to be key for us. We actually have another key area to be watching for, but I think that once again, the little drop that a lot of people are anticipating may not even happen as soon as people expect it. We could get a little pullback from where we currently are if the market does see some more sellers stepping in, and if we do get a shift depending on what Jerome Powell says. Could this be a bigger little dip all the way down to like 512? It's also a possibility, but even if that's the case, I do think buyers will return for the summer and continue to squeeze the markets before we see some big shifts later on. Another big factor is going to be Nvidia's earnings. That will determine if we get a bigger drop or not. But remember, the market is completely illogical. The market is not in touch with the economy completely. The economy could be getting very close to recession, and we could still see the market rally to crazy levels. And then once the recession hits, or once we get closer to more contraction, that's when things could shift later on. But I just want to say that right now, we are not ready for some massive crash that a lot of people are talking about. We are not ready right now, and the market could still anticipate some very, very interesting things. So, what's happening is data that the market's rallying based off of is very biased. It's very biased data. The Fed is continuing to keep everyone calm, and that's the reason why the market is just still holding up. So, with this happening, there could be a little drop coming to the markets. It's still a possibility, depending on what happens with Nvidia's earnings. Maybe just a very, very small little drop, and then we may continue to rally going into the summer before another drop as we approach Q3. That is what I'm kind of anticipating right now in a nutshell for the markets. Isn't the market oversold, or sorry, overbought? Why is it still pumping like this? Well, we were overbought back in December, and yet the market rallied. Back in November, December, and also parts of January, the market continued to rally and rally and rally. The market is just completely illogical sometimes, and it's designed to screw you over. So be careful trying to short a crazy market like this. Now, if the market gets a bigger drop like this, I would see this as a buying opportunity because once again, these market makers love to manipulate and squeeze as many shorts as possible. So we will see if we get another V-shaped recovery, but just know that the buyers are still fighting very, very hard. That's what I'm going to be watching for, and we'll see how things end up going, at least from here moving forward. How about for the QQQ? What do I see for the triple Q? In my personal opinion, I see something very similar potentially developing. I want to actually break this down in a very simple manner. If we take our key Fibonacci retracement area right over here, I'm not going to use a fib extension. I'm just going to be using our key basic fib retracement. You'll find that the QQQ, if it were to retrace, we could be coming back down towards the previous all-time high at 450, then eventually 444 into this zone down here. We have these gaps to fill. So there are two possibilities. Will the QQQ come all the way down like this, depending on Nvidia's earnings and etc., to start filling some of these gaps way down here as we approach like early June, and then get a very big V-shaped recovery and start to rally to new all-time highs going into August and beyond? Like this, before we continue back lower, we'll be watching to see if that ends up being the case. Or is something very different about to happen? Are we about to see a minor little pullback like this to our 0.236 retracement, and the rally is already starting, and the QQQ is just going to hold up and just start to continue to push for the upcoming months before we get another correction as we approach like August through September, right? That's like another possibility. We'll have to wait and see if that ends up being the case as well. But if anything, I'm thinking that the market may pop a bit with Jerome Powell's speech and maybe dip a little bit, come down to fill our first gap at least, and we'll see what happens after that. That's going to be very pivotal for the way we're moving. Also, notice that the QQQ is not even close to being overbought compared to previous levels that we saw the RSI in. So there is still upside potential that you have to be open-minded for. Another big thing about the markets is Tesla. Tesla has a lot of upside potential too. If you look at the chart, it looks very bullish on the bigger time frames. Let me just pull up the 4-hour and just show you. I don't even have to show you any indicators. If you just look at this, there's a big inverse head and shoulders on the 4-hour time frame. And I think that historically, here's the crazy thing about Tesla. Let's see if this data loads. Tesla is known for being very bullish in the month of June. So you have to make that very, very important. All right. June tends to be the most bullish month for Tesla. We are green 78% of the time in June. That's crazy. That's like almost 4 out of every 5 days Tesla's green in June. That's absolutely insane. And we tend to see insane upside at least for the month. That's how crazy June tends to be. So June is a monster month for Tesla historically, right? We're green 78% of the time in June's. That's, massive. And looking at the Tesla technicals, we have a nice inverse head and shoulders, and there is potential for this to go all the way back up to 200 all over again as we approach that June period for a massive bull run. So I think there is potential in Tesla. Going into the next week, we'll see what happens with Nvidia's earnings. We could shuffle a bit in the 170s, but I think that there's going to be a big run as we approach the month of June and towards the end of June too. So get ready, guys. Tesla has lots of upside potential, and we'll see how this ends up affecting the markets. Now, another big factor for Tesla, and the others will be Nvidia. Is Nvidia going to rally to new all-time highs and start pushing after earnings? They're known for beating earnings, guys, and we actually saw a little dip already, a big dip, I would say, all the way down to 760 from 1,000. So it did dip quite a bit in April. It's trying to recover here. Are we going to start breaking all-time highs into the 1,000s if we get some strong earnings? I would say it depends on what happens with guidance. So if guidance ends up being decent, yes, it could continue to push. If not, if it's not so good, we could dip a little bit. So we'll see how things go with Nvidia. But with that being said, guys, the market is absolutely insane. You could be the most logical person ever, and you could still lose money in this market because the market is completely illogical. In my opinion, it's kind of like out of touch of reality. So I think what's going to likely happen is with Jerome Powell's speech, we're going to pump a little bit, at least for SPY. And then we're going to be looking for something very, very big to shift because we have, once again, a potential for us to dip a little bit, retest the all-time highs, the previous all-time highs as previous support. So we could be coming back down to this area before we try to bounce and continue again. The market could be on, entering these crazy bull runs where it just goes and goes and does not want to stop. Just like this moment right here, back in like the very end of 2024 from November during this bull run period, it was just monstrous. And they are going to continue to manipulate things and make things very difficult no matter how overbought our indicators tend to be. Okay. So what do I think is going to happen? Could we get a little pullback? Yes, we could. But I think that June and July are going to be very strong months for the markets based off technicals and based off historical data. And then we'll see what happens as we approach August. We could get another correction then. But when you look at the monthly, we're looking very bullish on the month of May so far. And I think there is more upside potential. Could we dip a little bit towards the end of May? Yes, we could. But June tends to be historically bullish, and the market is still looking bullish for a nice uptrend so far. Okay, so what is my view, guys? We could dip a bit for the next 1 to 2 weeks. It's still possible for there to be a little bit of downside. But ultimately, I think the bulls will prevail and start pushing us for a summer rally, especially as we get closer to summer. And I think this is going to likely continue as we approach Q3. By Q3, things could actually start correcting again. All right, so we'll see. In order for there to be a big dip for SPY to start filling a lot of its gaps, we need a negative catalyst. So if I go to the daily charts, I call it a lot of these gaps. We need a negative catalyst to cause SPY to dip all the way back down to those low levels we saw earlier. Okay, we need a very bad catalyst. We need some bad news. We don't have it yet, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens until then. All right, so could SPY dip a little bit? Yes, it could, but then we'll see what happens as we approach June and July, as there is more upside potential later on for the markets, for Tesla and the others, in my personal opinion. All right, thank you for listening, guys. Have a great day. Hopefully, this video was insightful, as a monstrous squeeze is likely coming for the summertime. So we'll see how things go, and I just want to thank you all so much for listening. Have a great day, guys. Thank you, and peace out.